Welcome back. Now that the foundation's done, I'm going to start working on the sill plate. I'm working by myself, as you'll see. It takes a little bit more time measuring. I am doing a 3-4-5 square method to kind of square the corners, the sides of the building of the sill plate. But I'm also going to be doing a parallel measuring method that I'll talk about later when we get there. I will also be dry fitting the entire sill plate around the perimeter of the complete building. I'm snapping a blue line there. I'm going to use this wall as my reference wall, and then I'll square and parallel everything off of that line. I'm going to leave myself about 5/8 of an inch for the sheathing on the outside, so that the sheathing will be flush with the foundation wall on these corners, or at least on this side and the front side, as you'll see later. But that will change a little bit in the back because of the fact that the footers weren't perfectly square because of a issue that we had when we were pouring the footers. But the entire building from one corner to the other is only out by 2 or 3 inches, and the house is built in two rectangular sections that are offset from one another. So I'm really working with two squares, and each of those, the entire variance from the squareness is only by about an inch and a half in either section of the house. So it's not off by a lot, but it still, I want to take some extra time just to make sure the sill plate is perfectly square. Everything that is built on top of this will be determined by the accuracy of the sill plate ultimately. So I will spend a lot of time making sure this is really exactly the way that I want it. You always learn things when you're going through a process like this. You discover things you didn't necessarily expect. One of those things, apparently, is that I'm going bald. This is something that nobody has bothered to tell me, so I get to kind of learn this as I'm looking at myself. Oh well, that's the pains of getting old, I suppose. And as I said, I will be dry fitting the sill plate around the entire perimeter. I want to make sure everything is exactly the way that I want it. And then once that is, I'll come back and then one side at a time take up the boards, put in the sill seal between the foundation and the sill plate, and then lock everything down with the anchor bolts that are buried in the cells there. I will add additional anchor bolts. Currently, every board's going to get at least three anchor bolts that are already embedded in the cement, but a few of them I'm just going to add a couple of extras towards the end of the boards to make sure everything is flush and square and level before I start putting in the subfloor. Here I'm starting to pull the tape. So this is the parallel measuring I was talking about. So that first reference wall on the right, since I know exactly where that's going to be, I measure every 4 feet on this wall and on the other wall, which is a short wall because of the construction of the house. So it's about 12 foot. But I'll measure every 4 feet and take measurements and make sure that the opposing walls are exactly parallel to one another, and I'm going to do that side to side and then front to back. We will have a slight, some additional of the foundation peeking out from under the sill plate in the back because of the fact that it's not perfectly square. It might be, up to an inch, inch and a half on one of the corners, but there's going to be a deck on the entire back side of the house, so it's really not going to factor into anything visually, and I'll just add just some additional flashing to make sure that we don't get water intrusion coming back through between the foundation and the sill plate, because there's going to be a little bit of extra overhang. At the end of the day, it's a pretty minor problem to address, but again, really want to make sure that this is perfectly parallel and square, and then once everything is around the entire house, I'll go back and then refit everything permanently. At the moment, we're planning on 2x12s for the subfloor. I could probably get away with 2x10s. There's going to be an 8x8 oak post in the center of this room section that's going to carry the beams across the middle of the room from the middle of that wall that I'm on now to the corner of the foundation in the middle of the other side. Each of the floor span sections will be about 12 and a half feet. Like I said, I probably could get away with 2x10s, but 2x12s just gives me additional stability and confidence at not that much more cost. And I may also still go with eye joists. I'm going to make a last minute decision on that. And then I will also be using LVLs in some sections, like beneath bathtubs and things like that, just for additional stability. This front wall is almost perfectly square to that original reference wall that I started with. And because of that, the sill plates landed exactly where I wanted to. I'm going to have exactly the overhang that I want on the front side of the house. But I do continue to make these parallel measurements. And now I'm doing, again, those 4-foot sections, making a mark every 4 feet. This is the best way I know to make sure everything's parallel and square. But if you have other ideas or you have hints or thoughts, certainly let me know. I'm always happy to hear other people's methods and how they do things. It's a little hard to tell from this angle, but two of those trees that are on the other side of the wall there are pretty close to the house, and in fact, they're leaning pretty heavily. And we actually had a pretty severe windstorm the week before this, so I just wanted to take care of those, and I actually took those down right after I finished my work here for the day, just so that they didn't come down unexpectedly and land on the corner of the foundation. But those are the only two trees that really posed any concern. But that's about it for dry fitting this section of the house. I'm going to dry fit the next section next time. And I'm also going to be cutting some more posts and beams for the house. I cut down some logs about a year ago, year and a half ago, and I processed them into posts about 6 or 8 months ago, but I will be doing some more of that soon. Originally, it was our goal to use more of the trees from our property on the house build, but there just aren't enough trees that have the diameter we need to get that kind of lumber. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions.